look at all these choices. There's butter, and there's oils, and there's margarine and cheese. I mean, there's just all these choices and all these different kinds of fats.
Yeah, look at that. My gosh, I've never seen. You want butter or you want margarine?
I just don't know.
Oil.
Hey,
Hi,
how are you
Louise.
doing?
How are you doing?
I'm great. You know, I'm struggling with the same things you guys are talking about.
I know.
We
I
just
know.
can't. We can't decide what we should be eating and what we shouldn't be eating.
I know. You know, there's a class I signed up for at Tailored Nutrition, and it's about teaching us how to pick healthy fats versus non-healthy fats.
Great.
And I know I'm struggling because I'm trying to lose some weight. It doesn't matter what I do. You know, I just seem to be. So I'm trying to understand my fats better. I think that might help.
So you say there's a class at Tailored Nutrition about
Tailored Nutrition. I go down there and ask about it. And I'm sure that.
Great, why don't we go down and do it? It's so confusing. I need some help.
Welcome.
Oh, hi.
Hi, what can I do for you guys?
We're here to sign up for this class about fats.
Oh, the class on lipids?
What's the difference between fats and lipids?
You know what, let me grab Georgia and I'll let her explain all that to you guys.
Okay.
All right.
Good for you.
I'm Georgia. We're here to take that class on fats or lipids, I guess.
Yeah.
With all the discussion these days about good fats and bad fats, it's really confusing.
It is.
We were hoping that your course could explain some of that to us.
That's my hope too. That's why we're having the course. So you are in luck. It's actually later today. So if you'd like to sign up,
Let's do it.
That sounds good.
Awesome, good. Well,
Where do we sign up?
all right, let's sign up. Danny will help us out. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to our class on lipids. I hope that you're as excited as I am to talk about how we can put healthy fats and lipids on our plate. So first, what we're going to talk about today is the function and the structure of the different fats and lipids that we eat. And then Olivia Curvin, a registered dietitian nutritionist who also works with Tailored Nutrition, is going to talk to us about different sources of fats and lipids and how they're categorized, and help us really understand these different sources of lipids and fats in our diet. And finally, we're going to translate it to the plate. What should a typical day look like if you want to have the right balance of different fats in your diet? So we really hope you enjoy tonight's presentation and really hope that you leave today with some great new knowledge about how to eat healthy fats and lipids.
So before we get into the kitchen and start looking at fat sources in our diet and how to prepare them and what amounts, let's look at the actual structure and function of different lipids. Lipids is the term we're using to call this class because you can see from this slide here that the term lipids has several different big words falling underneath it, and many of these are actually different things that we eat that we kind of think of as fats, but they're structurally and functionally quite different, and so we need to just kind of appreciate that. So without getting into too much of the detail here, this is just a demonstration of why we're calling it lipids instead of fats. If it was just fats, it would just be this section right here, which would be like your olive oil, canola oil, and actually part of your olive oil and part of your canola oil, not the whole food itself, because the whole food contains a little bit of some of these other things, such as this and maybe some of this. Another example before we move on from this slide is that cholesterol that we eat would fall over here. And even though we kind of think of it as a fat, the term is lipids, because you'll see soon that it is very different structurally, and so therefore it actually has a very different function in the body. So let's move on to the next slide here. What do the lipids in our diet do for our body? They help lubricate body surfaces so that our joints move smoothly, so that our skin stays nice and soft and supple, and it's actually waterproofed by some of the fats that are released from the skin, or lipids would be the more correct term to call it. They actually provide each cell in our body its structure. So the structure that differentiates each cell from each other is in large part a reflection of the type of fat that we eat. And so if we want really rigid cells that have a lot of structure but are not very fluid, then we would have a lot of rigid fat in our diet. If we want more fluid cells, then we would have more fluid, less rigid fat in our diet. So we will look at that in a minute about what fats cause more fluidity to the cell wall and what fats cause more rigidity to the cell wall. And the answer of which fat's best is really balance. You need a little rigidity. You don't want just a mushy, no structure at all cell wall, but you want it to be somewhat fluid so that it can communicate with the outside and not be so structured that nothing can get in and out of the cell. Lipids make hormones and hormone-like messengers such as eicosanoids. This is very important and a concept we've kind of forgotten about. We have worried so much about lowering our cholesterol in our diet and in our bodies, we forgot that the lipid cholesterol is the primary building block of many hormones and many of the chemical messengers within our bodies. And so it's important for us to remember that and to not think of cholesterol necessarily as unhealthy, but making sure that we get the right amount, not too much, not too little. Adipose tissue is the way that we actually store the lipids that we eat. We store, for an average male, 115,000 calories in adipose tissue in our body. That is a lot compared to actually what we store in the glycogen, which is 1,400. So 115,000 calories stored in our body in adipose tissue. And that's for somebody that's at a normal weight. An average adult male at a normal weight. The lipids in our body also help protect our organs, providing some cushion, help with temperature control. So structure really does dictate their function. So different lipids have very different structures and therefore have very different functions. You can see over here, this is what cholesterol looks like. It has these hexanes, and this is what a fatty acid looks like. And this is a saturated fat here, but you can just see that they're very different structurally. The only thing they have in common is they both do not dissolve in water, and that's why they're categorized in this category of lipids. In the sterol category with cholesterol, again, what it does is it helps make hormones. It also helps make vitamin D, which is really a hormone itself. It helps make bile. It is very important for not only the cell membrane, but for forming the myelin sheath, which protects our nerves so that our nerves have an insulator around them so that they can send nerve messages. Without adequate cholesterol or adequate fats in the diet, you cannot form this myelin as well, and so your nerves do not send as good of messages. Cholesterol is only made by animals, so you don't get cholesterol from plants. What do the different types of fatty acids look like? This is on top a saturated fatty acid. You can see these carbons, the C's here. They're saturated with H's. There's no spot where an H could grab a hold of a carbon bond there. But you can see down here that it's not totally saturated or totally full. The double bond means that that bond could potentially still bond with hydrogen here as well as here. That's a mono or one unsaturated fatty acid. So one spot could still have room for more hydrogen. Each time there's a double bond, it improves the fluidity and flexibility of that fat. So the more double bonds, the more fluid and flexible that fat is. The fluidity and flexibility is definitely a positive attribute of these fats that are more double bonded. But a negative attribute is each one of these double bonds is more susceptible to oxidative damage. So if there is a free radical, this is an opportunity right here for that free radical to do damage. So if your cell wall has a whole lot of this and not very much of this, it is more susceptible to oxidative damage, but it will be more fluid. So what's the answer? Which one of these fats is best? Again, it's a balance, knowing your own unique needs and your own balance. Not too structured, but not too fluid as well. Here are the examples of the essential fatty acids, meaning you have to have these in your diet in some amount or else you will not live. All other fats can be made from these two fatty acids. This is omega 6 with the 2 double bonds, and this is omega 3 with the 3 double bonds. So this is the fat right here that we think of as the really healthy fat, the fish fat, some people call it. And most Americans need more of omega 3 and get plenty omega 6 and actually would do well to potentially decrease their omega 6, but absolutely to focus on increasing their omega 3. Sources of omega 3 and omega 6 in the diet. Here are some sources. You can see the omega 3 list and the omega 6 list. We're going to talk about exactly how much fat you need of omega 3 and omega 6 at the end of this presentation. This is just looking at the actual structure and function, but I wanted to show you that little list there of different sources just to give you a frame of reference. Moving on to our last slide here, this is a cell wall. Again, every cell in your body has these fatty acids, and in this image it's these little yellow tails coming off of what is called a phosphate head. This is a phospholipid bilayer. These little fatty acids, again, this is where you might have a saturated fat or an unsaturated fat. And if it's a lot of saturated, it's very rigid and doesn't allow a lot of communication in and out of this cell wall. But if it's saturated, it does not have those double bonds that are susceptible to oxidative damage. So that's an upside. Alternatively, the unsaturated would bring more fluidity, but more susceptibility to oxidative damage. Now, the real structural components, you can think of them as your support beams within your cell wall, is the cholesterol, very much supplying that rigidity that you need for the structure of your cell wall. And that's these red hexanes here. This is the sterol, the cholesterol. Again, just like the saturated fat, you need some, but if you have too much, you're going to have a very rigid cell wall, and the rigidity will make it less flexible, and that makes it more susceptible to types of diseases. So it's all about balance. Let's move on into the kitchen and look at some fat sources within our diet.
Hi class, it's Olivia here. I have some great examples of our different kinds of fats. We're going to start out with our red category over here. These are our saturated fats. So in the American diet, the highest sources of saturated fats that we have usually come from three things. The first is cheese, and the second is grain-based baked goods. So we have an example of a cookie here. And then the third is pizza. It's kind of hidden in the different ingredients in there. Some other sources of saturated fat are beef, dairy products, coconut oil, butter, and I have our square of chocolate up here up front. Our second category is our monounsaturated fatty acids. We have avocados, almonds, we have our extra virgin olive oil, and then we also have our avocado oil. And then moving on this green mat, we have a mix of our polyunsaturated fatty acids. We have both omega-3s and omega-6s here. So we have eggs, pumpkin seeds. Again, you'll see our grain-based baked goods. It kind of falls into both of those categories. Salmon is a great source of omega-3s. And then we also have flaxseed here, which is an omega-3 as well. So you see here that we have these categorized into three things, but it's actually not that simple. A lot of these foods are a mix of different kinds of fats. So for instance, our beef here could also fall into our poly category. as well as our milk. That can also come over here as well, just because each of the different foods have a variety of fats in them. They're organized like this because that's their highest sources. Now let's talk about lipids and what that is. Lipids are in the form of cholesterol, and we know that cholesterol is found in foods that come from animal products. So you can think of dairy products, butter, cheese, and beef, and our salmon as well also contains. And eggs are also a source of cholesterol. The general healthy guidelines for Americans is to consume less than 300 milligrams of cholesterol a day. So to give you an example, eggs contain about 160 milligrams of cholesterol. And then typically a general rule is that 3 ounces of any kind of meat will contain 50 grams or less of cholesterol. And we do know that cholesterol is an important part of the diet, as Georgia talked about before. Okay, now that we have a layout of what's what, let's talk about cooking with fats. So the most important thing to remember is to go back and think about what you learned with double bonds. So we know our saturated fats have no double bonds in them, and that makes them more stable at higher heats. So these fats here can sustain a higher heat, say over 300 degrees. For instance, coconut oil is a good example. This middle section, these are our medium heat oils. So these can sustain a temperature in between 200 and 300 degrees. So say you turn your stove up to medium, these would be good oils to use in that instance. And then these are our polyunsaturated fatty acids. So they have more double bonds, meaning that they have more potential to be oxidized at higher heats. So these you want to keep less than 200 degrees or very low heat when you're cooking.
Thanks, Olivia, so much for your presentation on sources of these different types of fats and lipids in our diet, and where the largest components of saturated fat come from in the American diet. Pizza, big surprise, right? Cheese, and those baked goods, those cookies, and also those crackers too. So let's look at some healthy choices here as an example, but probably about 1,600 calories, and it's a day's worth of really healthy eating. We try to reach the quantity recommended by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics on the fats within our diets, which I will show you right here. And those numbers are very helpful, but really your eye is your best gauge. If your plate looks like it's quality food to your eye, then chances are it is. So for example, here's breakfast. Again, these are healthy days. We're going to go through this, and then we're going to look at some unhealthy choices. So here's a healthy breakfast. Egg, and then we have, you could do some quinoa as a grain. You could do chia seeds. Chia seeds are really high in omega-3. And then I love to saute at a low to medium heat some greens in some olive oil or some avocado oil, and then throw my eggs in there, and then scramble the egg at the last minute, or not scramble it. You don't want to expose that yolk to high heat. That's not healthy. But other than that, the egg is awesome for you. You could have organic soy milk here, or almond milk, or just water. Water is awesome. Water is the best beverage to choose. So a snack between breakfast and lunch, a healthy monounsaturated fat source. These almonds, excellent. Lots of vitamin E too, very good for you. Some orange, get you some vitamin C here, nice whole food. And then moving on to lunch, the most common lunch item on the American plate is a sandwich. So again, we have some whole wheat here. So also we want to see vegetables at every meal. That is an ultimately healthy diet. Again, if you tolerate milk, yogurt, even if you are a little lactose intolerant, yogurt tends to be easier to digest because of the healthy bacteria in there, even if you have lactose intolerance. The problem with American yogurt is very high in sugar. And sugar is something we need to really lower in the American diet. But it does fit within this healthy day. Just try to choose a yogurt that's as low in sugar as possible. The sandwich I'm making today is a peanut butter and jelly, and I want to make my peanut butter and jelly with peanut butter that does not have hydrogenated oils. So trying to avoid any other fats in there besides just the peanut itself. Water, great to have with your meal. Moving on, a little snack in the afternoon, a little pick-me-up, just a little bit of chocolate might be nice. Definitely going to be part of your saturated fat source there, but it fits in nicely with our day. And then moving on to supper, beautiful piece of salmon there that we have. That's probably about a 4 to 5 ounce serving of salmon. So you're going to get about 2 grams of omega-3 there, which is a really good number to try to shoot for omega-3. Then again, some greens, mixing it up in the veggie salad, whatever sounds desirable to have as a salad at supper is always a good idea. Mixing in the greens, collard greens, kale, mustard greens, just trying different types of plant-based, especially deep green leafy vegetables is always a great choice. A little sweet here. Pineapple's a very sweet fruit, so satisfies that piece of your taste desires to have a little sweet, a little savory. This could be very savory, some brown rice. You could savor it up by, when you cook it in some vegetable stock and add some seasoning. I actually like to add just a little bit of sesame oil to my rice and to my salad, mainly because a little bit goes a long ways as far as flavor. Sesame oil is really an omega-6 source that we get plenty of in the diet. So it's not so much because it's such a healthy fat, but it's because a little bit of flavor goes a long way, really satisfying that savory piece of the meal. Some water again. So finally, finishing up, little night snack. You might have some tea with a little honey. I have a ginger snap tea in here. Maybe a little chocolate to go with that if your heart desires. It would still fit in on this day, be very healthy. Okay, so we gave an example of a very healthy day of eating, incorporating healthy fats in about 1,600 calories a day. And we're going to take a look at an unhealthy day, a very typical American diet here in a minute. But another perspective to think about fats and how much you should have a day if your calorie needs were around 1,600 calories, it would be about 53 grams of fat that you need a day. So how many tablespoons is that? Well, a tablespoon of fat, whether it's olive oil or butter, is around 10 to 13 grams of fat per tablespoon. So what that means, if you need about 1,600 calories a day, you get almost 5 tablespoons of fat a day. So for some of you, that may seem like a lot. For some of you, you might be surprised how little that is. And remember, that fat's in a lot of different foods that we eat, such as the cookies that we're eating, the dressings we're using, our dairy products, our snack foods for sure, cheese really high. And those condiments like the dressing and like butter, mayonnaise really add up fast.
Here is an example of a less healthy 1,600 calorie meal plan day, where for breakfast you would have bacon, not this whole package, but one piece of that bacon in 1,600 calorie framework with the butter, with the egg, and depending on the milk would all contribute to fats, especially the saturated fat here, which with this day would tip you into the unhealthy, less balanced range, especially paired with low nutrient dense carbohydrates like a white processed bagel and a fruit juice. And lunch, here are these processed foods of the potato chip and the cookies adding to less healthy fats, and the cheese would be in the saturated fat, which can be healthy in small amounts, but in this example here, it's paired with less healthy choices, so it really tips it to the unhealthy side. Also with the carbohydrate of the fruit juice and the sugar in the dairy here and the yogurt being excessive, and then again the milk, depending on if you buy the non-fat or the whole milk, will determine how much fat is contributing into this mix. And then finally, the most common supper meal in America, pizza. And because it's so common, it is one of the largest contributors of fat in our diet. And it tends to be saturated fat that is contributing here, with the cheese and the pepperoni in this example being very large sources of saturated fat. paired with some dressing. We like our ranch, and a lot of us really douse that salad with ranch. That makes it really not a healthy choice. Trying to find a dressing, like just a really healthier oil, such as the sesame oil example, or almond oil, or avocado oil, or even olive oil, would be much better than doing something like just a regular ranch dressing. And then you have, again, a processed cookie product with saturated fat, chocolate, which can be healthy just like the milk can be healthy. It's just that in this framework, it does not fit into a healthy diet because of the other choices it's paired with.
Wow, that was really good. That was interesting. Yeah, I learned a ton. I'm so glad I came. Thank you for telling me about it.
Yeah, it really explained a lot of stuff about lipids and the differences between good fats and bad fats.
Yes, I've been wondering about it for years. You know, I'm trying to lose some weight, and it seems like everything I eat, I'm confused about.
I know
What kind of a fat is a healthy fat?
I know I'll be able to make better food choices now and pick those things that are going to be better for me and have better fats in them. And I'm really happy I do.